She hasn't defined what she would do, specific policies. They know more about her because of the DNC, those who saw it. They don't know exactly what she would do on the economy in particular.
Shira, let me turn to you here because you have, you know, sort of, you have followed, have covered Kamala Harris since she was sort of in these local state races in California. She's done debates. She did one in, you know, of course, 2010. There were some interesting moments there where she let her opponent's awkward moment hang when he was asked if he would double dip, for example, take a salary both in his federal job and a different, or his state job and a different job he had. And she said, hey, she let him talk. Happened again in 2016 when her opponent rather awkwardly did like a dab, essentially. She let that moment hang. She has experience on debate stages, on smaller stages, not a national stage here. Talk me through what you're going to be looking for tonight from somebody who has done 4 presidential primary debates, has done 1 vice presidential debate, of course, in the last cycle. What's your sense?
Hallie, basically what I'm going to be looking for tonight is for Harris to make her point on policies, not to get caught up in any attacks that Trump might get on her. And for him, the test is really going to be, does he focus on the lines of attacks that work for him on her, that she's too far of a liberal, that her policies are bad, tying her to what Republicans see as this current administration's failed policies. If both of them manage to do that, they'll both come out looking pretty good. Now, I'm not so sure that he'll manage to stick to that. And when it comes to her, she has managed to get some really good viral moments with some specific one-liners. It's going to be really interesting to see if she manages to get any of those moments in. As I'm sure you've mentioned, the issue of the hot mics is something that her team really fought for, and that could lead to a problem if she's not able to goad him into losing his cool and then shoot off a cute little one-liner like she normally does.
We'll talk about some of the issues, too, here, Shira, because you look at the issue of reproductive rights, and Andrew, I want to ask you about this, too, but a number of voters, especially women in some of these key battleground states, and you know Pennsylvania is one of them, say that abortion is going to be key for them. Second most important issue overall in some polling, more so for women voters than men by a large margin, as we take a look at the gender gap that exists in this race. I think it is the expectation of many people that Kamala Harris is going to try to go on offense on this issue of reproductive rights. What does she need to do on that front, Shira, to make that effective?
She needs to tie him to a lot of the extremist policies. She's been pretty effective. Reproductive rights is one of the issues that she has worked on the longest, is strongest on. And so as long as she's able to tie him to extremist policies, or what she will say is extremist policies when he talks about abortion, in terms of how many weeks you can get an abortion up until, can you access the abortion pill, mifepristone, can you access contraceptives? Those kinds of issues will be really key for her, and I expect her to largely succeed on that point. I'm also going to be curious to see how much she talks about the care economy. That's something that she's talked a lot about. It's something that polls really well with both Republicans, Democrats, and independents. So I'm looking to see if she brings that up tonight as well.
Okay, so care economy. Andrew, you talked about economy. We talked about reproductive rights. We know housing costs is something that is likely to come up because Kamala Harris has been talking a lot about that too. Immigration as well, from the perspective of former President Trump. His campaign believes that she has weakness here. They see a political liability in her handling of the Northern Triangle, in her role handling some of the root causes of the migrant crisis here. Andrea, how does she prepare against an attack like that?
Well, the best thing she could do, and that is her biggest vulnerability in the polling, and it's immigration, but substantively it's the economy, but substantively it is immigration. Look, the best thing she can do is say that there would have been a border bill from a conservative Oklahoma senator, a bipartisan bill that Donald Trump tanked, and that was a border enforcement bill as well as reforming a lot of the procedures down there and putting a lot more money down at the border. So I think that's the best she can do, that he obstructed the one chance for bipartisan action on immigration.
Andrea Mitchell, Shira Stein, good to see both of you. Thank you very much. Coming up, we're going to have a lot more coverage of this first debate right here on NBC News Now. And by the way, when that debate begins just about 2.5 hours from now, you can watch it exactly how you're watching now, on TV, online, on your phone. It will be right here on NBC News and NBC News Now. We're going to have much more from Philly coming up, but we're also going to take you down south. Why? Because the Gulf Coast, parts of it are under mandatory evacuation orders as a tropical storm is set to hit as a hurricane in the next 24 hours, a story we're also watching closely. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
News lives in the now. It's coming at us every second. News is more now than ever.
Just outside of the Israeli military headquarters.
Now is raw.
This tunnel just goes on and on.
Now is real.
We get to see democracy in action for the very first time in the 2024 race.
Now is constant.
You gotta see this.
Future is now. News for the generation of now is NBC News Now.
We are getting closer to that big showdown. We're so close, and I'm just like in my notes. I can't stop looking at our Slacks, at my texts, because that is how quickly things are coming in as we are getting closer and closer to debate night in Philadelphia. But you know what else is getting closer and closer? The potential for a massive tropical storm, potentially a hurricane, to make landfall along the Gulf Coast. We want to get a quick check on that because we got some new National Hurricane Center updates just about 90 minutes ago. Bill Cairns, our meteorologist, is joining us now. It's not a hurricane yet, Bill, right? But people in Louisiana are already getting ready. They've got evacuation orders in place in some parts of that state. Talk us through it.
Yeah, and every storm is different because of where the topography of the land that it makes landfall. So let me get into this a little bit. First off, here's the storm surge forecast. Number one thing we typically talk about is storm surge. That's usually the thing that takes the most lives. When a Category 1, what we're expecting, we're not going to have a crazy, huge storm surge. Plus, this isn't beaches. This is swampland. But this area from 5 to 10 feet is of greatest concern. That's going to be just to the right of wherever that center makes landfall. And that looks to be somewhere close to Morgan City. So let's focus in on this. Here's the New Orleans area. And let's zoom in closer. There's water everywhere in southern Louisiana. So here's Morgan City. I mean, look at these rivers and tributaries and, little mini lakes that are in this area. So a lot of southern Louisiana, after Katrina and other massive floods, they invested a ton of money in the levee system to protect all of the communities like Morgan City and Wilson's Landing and Patterson. So they're going to get possibly a 5 to 10 foot storm surge. But the levees have been built up significantly higher over the years because of the numerous floods. The levee in Morgan City is 20 feet. So this storm is not going to flood the city. They don't have to worry about that. This is not an area that's in trouble. But there's other smaller communities that do not have a levee system like that. I just want to show you one, Hallie, up the river here. A lot of small communities like Ricklehook. These are the people that have evacuated already that have, don't have the levee systems to protect them. So just something to watch as we go through tomorrow, as we expect this to be a Category 1, maybe a Category 2 hurricane at this time tomorrow, making landfall.
All right, Bill, you know where you're going to be this time tomorrow. Right back with us on the show right here on NBC. Thank you, Bill. Let's take you back to Philadelphia now because we are getting closer and closer to a debate that could potentially be a factor for at least some voters in 7 key battleground states. With this race, do I need to say it again? It is close, folks. One of those states is Michigan, where polls show VP Harris leading former President Trump by just a percentage point, but that is well inside the margin of error. Shaq Brewster is in Grand Rapids for us tonight, and I'm super curious, Shaq, when you're talking with people out there, are they planning to watch? Do they care? Have they decided on a candidate yet? Walk me through it.
Yeah, Hallie, I was actually surprised to hear the amount of voters who told me that they do plan on watching it or at least catching up with the highlights afterwards or when you get to tomorrow. And that's especially the case among those undecided voters or at least people who are torn, struggling to make that decision. This county specifically is one where you saw Donald Trump win it in 2016, but President Biden flipped it in 2020. It's been trending toward the Democrats. So I went to a farmer's market earlier today and just asked people, are you planning to watch the debate and what do you want to hear? Here's some of those conversations. Sounds like you're leaning towards supporting the vice president. What are those issues that you want to hear her emphasize?
I want to hear about health care. I want to hear about the economy. And just that she's going to bring a broad perspective.
I just want to know what each candidate has to say for themselves.
You voted for Trump.